we've heard niche down so many times, we're all sick of it.
Yes,
But
me too.
but she figured out what most authors don't figure out, which is, yes, niche down, but then also niche up.
Hmm.
So find that thing that you know and makes you different and makes you stand out and meets a need, but also figure out how you can scale that message up to where it's going to be of benefit to more people than just your target reader. And so she wrote the book for parents,
Hmm.
but the way that she's been able to niche up is all these agencies also want that book because they're working with the same people in that niche. And so that's the power of niching up after you've niched down, is recognizing that's really how people are able to scale their message.
Welcome to the Coachability Code podcast. This is your host, Jordan Ring. Coaches, you ready to be coached? Let's go. All right, everyone. Thank you for listening and tuning in to another episode. Today, I have Jonathan Jordan with me. Super excited just to talk with him about all of this coaching stuff. He is a book coach, and I'll let him introduce himself. But yeah, Jonathan, thanks so much for being on today. Super appreciate you.
Yeah, no, it's always a ton of fun talking with you. And of course, we can talk about books and book coaching until the sun burns out, basically. So,
I
um,
think so, right?
yeah. I mean, that's what we spend our lives doing now. And then, yeah, as far as kind of how I got into all this, I find that's usually the best way to introduce myself, is just to
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of give the crash course. I always wanted to be a storyteller. That was true from childhood. It just took me quite a while to come back around to doing that professionally. So I was a social worker for 8 years out of college, which I did get my degree in literature. So it's not like the
Hmm.
writing thing completely came out of left field. It's just, people told me you can't have a career as a writer, and I believed them.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
you know how that goes. Yeah. So I went off, did some good in the world, was a social worker for twice the amount of time I thought I would do it, went into sales for 6 years. And it was while I was in that sales job that I was approached by a couple people who knew how much I loved writing and said, "Hey, can you help us with our books?" And so one of them was a children's book I did for free. The other one was my first paid client, who was putting together essentially a collection of memoirs around
Mm.
a topic. And both of those books did surprisingly well, like better than what I was expecting them to do. And I realized, man, this is a skill I can actually monetize, and it was a lot of fun. So who doesn't want to make money and have fun at the same time? So that was really my entry into book coaching, because that's what I did with both of those authors, was walk them through the entire process and help them get from idea to a published book. And that second author, the one who was my first paying client, she's now done 4 books. I helped her with the first two. And I mean, it's crazy just how, when you have an idea you believe in, it's not crazy, actually. That's the wrong word to use. It's
Yeah.
logical. It's logical that when you have an idea you are passionate about and you are consistent with it, you can make waves. And, I'm just incredibly
Yeah.
proud of the progress she's had. But that was really the beginning for me. And then, over the past 3 years, I've been doing this full time. And book coaching just kind of looks different for different people. For some
Hmm.
people, that
Hmm.
means I'm helping them edit a manuscript they've already finished, but they need to figure out how to take it to that next level. And then for some people, it's literally, I have this idea and I don't know what to do with it.
Hmm.
Help, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, so anything and everything in between. But that's kind of the crash course on how I got here.
All right, super cool. Well, we'll dive into the deeper coaching level questions, but I do
Yeah, of
like to
course.
ask some fun icebreaker questions just so the audience can get to know you. Um,
Please.
Favorite book, or you can also answer most interesting book you're reading right now. I
Yeah.
will ask you your favorite movie because I know that's a tough one for you because you're a movie buff. So everyone else I've said can list their top three. I want to hear your favorite and why. And then
Hmm.
also weird thing that not everyone knows about you.
Okay. Yeah, favorite movie is actually pretty easy for me because it's been the same one since eighth grade.
Okay.
Okay. So, yeah, back in 1998, I discovered this movie called Chariots of Fire. And I sat down and watched it for the first time on a day that there was no school and I was bored. And I fell in love with that movie right away. It has been my number one favorite movie since then. It's very difficult for me to see that movie ever getting dethroned because it basically
Yeah.
has everything in it that I love about great storytelling. It's got a great script, fantastic cast, true story. It's got all the inspirational vibes. I'm there. It's got the Olympics for crying out loud, and I'm
Yeah,
an
yeah,
Olympics
exactly. That's right.
junkie. Like it's the total package for me when it comes to movies. So,
Yeah, I
um,
love it. That's a good one for sure. I'm with you.
yeah, it's a great movie. So that one's actually pretty easy for me to answer, even though, yes, I watch a lot of movies and have conflicting feelings about many movies.
Yeah.
Favorite book is a lot more challenging because there's so many different genres and there's so many things I like about different books and reasons I would recommend them for different purposes. So, for the point of our conversation today, I'll stick with my favorite nonfiction business book
Perfect.
because that's probably what I refer to the most. And so that title is Creativity Inc. by Ed Catmull, which does have an overlap into filmmaking because
Hmm.
Ed was the president of Pixar Animation for a long, long time. So the book really just kind of tells the story of the early days of Pixar and how they developed and the moves that they made and kind of the business philosophy, even the creative storytelling philosophy that they use. And he just does such a masterful job of blending those things together that it tends to be a book I recommend to many of my clients is, hey, if you haven't read this, go give it a read because it's going to give you a good template and some good ideas on how you can weave together your personal story, business lessons, and still make it entertaining for people who are reading. So that is probably one of my most recommended titles of all time.
Yeah, I'm honestly totally with you on that. That book is close to a must read for coaches because of the
Yeah,
creativity part of it, because of what you can learn.
yeah.
I need to reread it again. I think I read it. Wow. I don't even remember. I don't know when it came out, but it feels like at least 5 years ago that I read the book. Yeah, I could do with a reread of that because I know it got me thinking in all kinds of different directions. Lots of good stuff there.
Yeah, same, same. So I refer to it a lot, and it probably is my favorite business nonfiction book that even in the work that I do, I'm always kind of thinking, not how do I make this like Creativity Inc., because every book needs to be its own thing, but
Yeah.
like how can I draw inspiration
Yeah.
from its success to help this author be successful?
Yeah. Cool. And one weird thing about you that not everyone knows, which I guess a weird thing is something that not everyone knows. So maybe I need to cut that part of the question, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
Yeah, weird thing is tough because there's so many weird things about me. I
That's how I feel when someone asks me that. I'm like,
yeah,
where do you want me to
I'm like
start?
yeah, narrowing the scope down on that is a little challenging. I will say this, not everyone knows that I have run a marathon wearing a tutu. I have shared this story before, but I probably don't share it quite enough. But my oldest son, when we were in the process of adopting him, before we'd been matched with him or anything like that, we were doing a fundraiser. I was training for a marathon at the time, and the whole deal was basically if we recruited people and we said, "Hey, if you can help us raise X amount of dollars for our adoption fund, you
Hmm.
get to pick something I have to wear in my next marathon." And it was so successful that I actually had to do wardrobe changes a couple of times
Really,
during
really
the
nice.
race because there was no way I could wear everything that people had picked at one time, which I wasn't expecting. Like I really thought, oh, a few people will hit this goal and, I'll look like a weirdo, but whatever. But yeah, I actually had to stop two different times in the race to change out my outfits. But But I think the tutu stayed on the whole time just because it was inconvenient to figure out a way in and out of it. So, yeah. So that's
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, it's weird, but don't you love it when like those things work out and you just don't like you don't expect those things to happen and you're like, "Oh man, how did I get myself in this situation?" But there's nothing bad about it, right? Like it's
No,
for the right reason, so it's good.
yeah, yeah. No, it was, yeah, definitely a good reason. Because, yeah, I remember the last wardrobe change I had to do was only like, I think a mile or two out from the finish line. And it's because someone wanted me to wear a cape and these really weird sunglasses that there's no way I could have like run the whole race
Yeah.
in either one of those things because of the way that they were shaped. So yeah, I had to basically put those on the last, mile and a half of the race. Yeah, but
Yeah.
good memories.
Interesting. I love it. All right. So, Jonathan, someone says, "Hey, Jonathan, what do you do?" And you talked a little bit about how you got into it, but how would you describe it to someone present day?
Yeah, I mean, I usually just tell people that I'm a hitman so they'll leave me alone
Okay.
and not ask me what I
I love
actually
that.
do. No,
Yeah.
no, that's a lie. I've never once said that. So
I might use
usually
that
what
one day though, because I actually like that too. Like, I don't want to have
yeah,
this
I mean,
conversation.
yeah, if you're in a rush and you don't want to have to get into everything, that's what you say, and people are just like, "Oh, okay," and they leave you
Okay. Okay.
alone. But usually I will try to keep it simple and just tell people I'm a writer because everything I do is related to words, and it's just much easier for I think people to conceptualize what a writer is. But inevitably, that usually leads to more questions
Yeah.
whenever you tell people you're right, because then they want to know, oh, well, what do you write, and have I heard of any books that you've worked on, et cetera, et cetera. But I would say most of the time, I just tell people, hey, I'm a writer. I help books come into the world,
Hmm.
essentially. And then my second most often answer is to just say a book coach.
Yeah.
And I'll just tell them to keep it simple. I'll tell them, think of me like a coach for an athlete, except replace athlete with author. And a lot of times people are like, oh, okay. And they'll leave me
Yeah.
alone at that point too.
Yeah. So
Sometimes.
with the people that are coming for, let's talk about the book coaching because we're talking about
Yes.
coaching here on this podcast. So what are the primary reasons that someone would seek you out? Because yeah, as we know, like even for athletes, like they're not seeking us out. I heard that I needed a book coach.
Yeah.
That's not what they're thinking or saying. So what are they thinking or saying when they come to you?
Yeah. So really, they come to me usually because they've already started the process and they've discovered how difficult it is. And so that's kind of the challenge of what I do is that not everyone's coming to me with a clean slate. In fact, none of them are coming to me
Hmm.
with a clean slate. They usually have some state of here's what I've done so far. And
Yeah.
some of them, they may have half of a book done, or they think they have half of a book done. Or some of them have maybe an outline. Some of them have maybe some articles that they've written and thought, oh, I can turn this into a book, but they've reached that point where they are just stuck and realizing they can't level up. And again, this is where it's a good analogy to, something like running, where you would have an athletic coach, is because there's no athlete going to a coach and saying, convince me why I should be in this sport, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they're already in the game. They're already doing it, but they realize I cannot improve, but I don't know what the reason is, and they realize I need a coach. I need someone who sees past my blind spots, or rather can see into my blind spots and help me find those solutions. So that's usually why people come to me, is they've already tried to do it themselves, or they've tried with other professionals and it just didn't work out for a number of reasons, and now they've come to me to get help.
Yeah. Yeah. And I found very similar. It's just people that are coming and it always seems like they've tried somewhat and they're
Yep.
somewhat stuck, they're somewhat lost. And but then yeah, it's like what you said, they don't need to be convinced to play the game. They've started the book,
Right.
they want to play the game. And I feel
Yeah.
like I think my guess would be that that goes to other coaching avenues as well and other things people do is that they don't need to convince someone. You don't need to convince someone, oh, you need a mental health coach or you need a mental
Right.
fitness coach. It's like they're not thinking of that. They just need help thinking through their thoughts, right? Or and thinking of whatever the other issue is. I'm
Yeah.
always curious, like what is specific to book coaching in this case, or what is specific to athlete coaching, or if there is. So I think there's specific things, and there's also those different reasons as well. I'm always curious what those are.
Yeah, I think there has to be a level of humility there where people realize I need help, right?
Yeah.
I've experienced this challenge, I've experienced this failure, and I need someone to come alongside. Speaking of Chariots of Fire, there's this one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and it's one no one really ever talks about, but it's when Harold Abraham starts working with his coach, Sam Musabini. So he kind of tries to pitch himself to Sam at first, like, here's why you should work with me. And Sam is like, we'll see. I'll watch you run. We'll see how it goes. And Harold loses a race. He loses a race. And at the end of it, he's thinking, I've lost my chance to work with this
Yeah.
great coach. Like he just watched me fail. But that's the moment when Sam says, okay, you're ready now. Like
Yeah.
you're ready now because you've been humbled and you see that you need my help. I love that moment. And that's how it is with a lot of my clients is there's some sort of failure that has led them to meet me.
Yeah. It just made me think of that. Like, we have to be, and I never would have said this or realized this as a coach, especially as a book coach. I never would have thought, okay, I'm really going to need to practice empathy in those moments. I would have
Mm,
thought, okay, they're hiring me for a task, so I'm helping them through something. But then
yeah.
it's exactly what you said. They're coming at a point of frustration, failure, difficulty. And if you're not,
Yeah.
I've found that if you're not sensitive to that, then you're doing them a disservice. So I'm curious of like what your experience has been with that.
Yeah, I mean that's where I think my social work training really kind of kicks in of just being able to see the position people are in and
Hmm.
not judge too quickly or too harshly what the
Yeah.
circumstances might actually be because it's easy, especially given the fact that so many of my clients have done really well in business and in life. There can be this I don't know, there can be this little air of, does this person really need my help?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they're so successful, they've done so well. But you really have to kind of see past that. You have to see past the title and past any financial success and really just see the human that is there who is in need of help, regardless of those external circumstances. And so, yeah, you do have to approach with that empathy and realize that not everyone is going to be ready to hear what you need to tell them to fix right away. And so you've got to be sensitive to
Yeah.
their communication needs and how they need to hear from you.
Yeah. All right, Jonathan. So best student that you've had and why?
Oh man, that's tough because I've been really fortunate and I've had a lot of really great clients
Hmm.
overall. But I would say one of the ones I'm the proudest of, and he's given me permission to use his name, but Colin Campbell, who is the author of Start, Scale, Exit, Repeat. He just did really an incredible job the entire time we were working on that book together of just being very open-minded to what I had to say and to my suggestions and but he also wasn't afraid to push back when it was necessary and say, "Well, here's what I'm thinking."
Hmm.
And I don't mind pushback from clients. I don't want pushback 100% of the time
Yeah.
because then there's something toxic there. But what I appreciated about that was he would take in the feedback and he would process it and say, well, here's what I was thinking. Here's why I was coming from this angle. And a lot of times that would evolve the conversation to me having a better understanding of what
Hmm.
he was trying to accomplish and realizing, okay, maybe it's not option A that you started with, and maybe it's not option B that I'm suggesting. Maybe there's an option C that's better than both of our ideas. So going back to Creativity Inc., he talks a lot in that book about best idea wins, right?
Hmm.
So I think Colin did this just a great job of living that idea out, and both of us figuring out through dialogue and through trial and error that we just need to put a little bit of work in together to find whatever the best idea is. Sometimes it was mine, sometimes it was his, and sometimes it was some third idea we just hadn't had yet.
Yeah, I really like that concept of best idea wins, because I've tried to
Yeah.
do that with my people as well, and to really put as like when I'm working on this book, when I'm coaching you through this process, if there's something I'm sharing, if I'm sharing an idea and it doesn't resonate with you, then let's talk about that.
Mhm.
I am not tied to this. I'm not going to get upset if you say, Jordan, this part of the book or something here just doesn't work. It's like, actually, I want to hear that. And I've been telling that to
Yeah.
people more and more. It's like, I want you to definitely tell me if something's not resonating, of course.
Right.
If something is, then that's great. That's helpful as well. But it's almost more helpful if you say, this does not sound like me. I
Yeah.
want this kind of feedback. That's going to make the rest of it better. And I found that, yeah, the people that are willing to do that, especially when it's difficult, I think it's difficult for some people to give feedback. I mean, that's just a very general thing, but it can, people have may not have experienced that before. And I found that as a coach, is the more that I can try to catalyze that and to try to make them comfortable in those situations and to say, hey, your feedback's not gonna, it's not gonna piss me off. It's gonna be fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be fine. I'm not gonna let it bother my, it's not gonna ruin my day. Let's talk about it. Because of what you said, like it's the best idea that wins. And I like that. I haven't
Yeah.
thought of, I didn't remember that from the book, but I really like that as let's work toward this together. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's something I've always tried to do with my client. Well, I shouldn't say always. This is something I
Yeah.
had to kind of learn to do, maybe, second or third project of giving my clients the permission to disagree with me and to
Hmm.
tell me what's wrong. And a lot of times when I turn in that first draft of the first chapter to a client, I tell them at this stage, I do not need my ego stroked. You
Yeah.
can do that
Yeah.
later on when the book is finished and
Yeah.
and we've done a great job together. I said, but I tell them like right now, I what I really need more than anything else is to know what is not working.
Yeah.
Where am I
Yep.
not capturing your voice? Where am I getting the idea wrong? Like where are those disconnects? And I think by priming people to think that way, it makes it okay. It builds some trust. It creates transparency around being able to provide that feedback. And it just, for me, it helps accelerate the rest of the process. If we find the biggest problems in the first chapter, then those aren't going to keep happening in chapter two and
Exactly.
chapter three.
Yeah, and it's only going to get better as you go. And that's
Yeah.
what I share with all, even with my, yeah, with my book coaching clients too. Like the more that you do this, the better the book is going to be.
Yep.
Like
Yep.
your first 10,000 words in the book, probably not going to be super great. Probably going to chuck those in the trash, to be honest with them. The rest of
Yeah.
it, the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it.
Right.
It's just being willing. And I know that's hard for people, especially with writing books, because it's such a personal adventure that they're going on, that it can be very raw for a lot of people. And I think
Yes.
getting that momentum is everything, but it's also just extremely difficult too. So
Yep. Definitely.
would you, as you said, you had mostly good clients, and that's amazing. But is there a challenging situation that you can think of that you wouldn't mind sharing? And then
Oh,
something like how you got over that, how you overcame that with a client?
yeah, for sure. I mean, there's anytime you work with human beings, there's going to be challenges. And sometimes that challenge is named Jonathan Jordan, frankly.
Yeah.
Like
Or Jordan
sometimes
Ray.
I'm the
Yeah.
problem.
Pretty common.
Sometimes I'm the problem. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been a number of issues over the years because I've been doing this long enough. And one of them, and honestly, this is one I didn't overcome, but I think it'll be
Yeah.
helpful to share.
Yeah.
There was a situation I had with a book where honestly it kind of fell apart to the point that I didn't even want to claim working on the book by the end of it. Like
Yep.
it was one of those things where we had a third party kind of enter into the process who also started providing feedback. And this was a person who worked with the author but does not know publishing
Hmm.
and kind of made the situation toxic. Not kind of, did make the
Yeah.
situation toxic because, and I mean, you think about it from the author's point of view, this is someone who they have a long relationship with. This is someone they hire. This is someone they trust. This is someone who excels in their business and has helped make them successful. Of course, they want to listen to that person and not, this person across from them that they've only been working with for a few months. The big challenge there was that they just could not latch onto one of my key concepts that I teach clients, which is that you do not need to convince people of your intelligence in the book. Like you don't have to try to sound smart, and you're
Hmm.
going to you're going to actually push people away if you do that. And I did my best working with them to help them see what that would look like and how that would translate onto the page. And then you have this party coming in, part of their business, who really kept complaining about the tone of the book, and it just doesn't sound intelligent enough. It just does. We need more jargon. We need more this. We need to prove. And it just became one of those situations where it was no longer, frankly, helpful for either of us to be working together
Yeah.
anymore. So I did a major rewrite on that project for them when they gave me, essentially said, okay, we came up with a new outline.
Yeah.
Exactly what you want to hear after you've finished a manuscript for
The
someone.
worst
Uh,
case scenario, honestly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But that part of it actually wasn't too bad because I was actually working with their in-house writer at that point, who was
Hmm.
awesome and was great and agreed with me on my key points. And he was fantastic. And so we worked together on this rewrite. And then after that, you still had this other person who was like, nope, no, but still, it still doesn't sound smart enough. It's so
Yeah.
so yeah, it just kept devolving until the point it was like, look, I just need to remove myself from this project,
Yeah.
and frankly, I think that was what they wanted to anyway. So we
Yeah.
just kind of went our separate ways, and they eventually released the book. I don't think it's probably done what they wanted it to do for them, but yeah, there are times where sometimes you just have to admit this is not working. Nothing's ever going to be 100%, right? But what that did teach me, and what I use with my clients now, is this is something I will bring up sometimes of like, hey, who else is going to be collaborating on this book and how? Do you have
Hmm.
someone in house who is going to be helping out? And if so, hey, bring them along. And I really try to position it as a positive thing
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like, I'm open to other people's feedback who know you, because I've had other times where this worked out really well. I had a project a year after that one that was very similar in a lot of ways. And again, we were not quite halfway done with the book, but maybe a third of the way when they said, "Oh, we want to bring in this person from in-house to help provide feedback." And I started getting a little bit triggered from that previous
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. It would be hard not to. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when they started providing notes back and they were like, "Oh, well, here's what I envision." And it was like, "Oh, this is really beautiful writing, but I don't think it's actually what
Yeah.
what we need in this project." But because I'd had that previous experience that had gone south, I was able to meet one-on-one with that person and be like, "Hey, here's kind of what you need to know about the publishing process that you haven't seen. Here's what the author has shared with me and what I think they have shared with you." And so we were able to come to this understanding where by the end of the project, there were times when the author was pushing back against me, and that person would actually chime in and be like, "No, you know what? I think you need to listen to Jonathan on this one."
Yeah.
Because I had turned that person into an ally early enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
in the process, like, oh my gosh, that author almost cut out the best story in the entire book because they felt like it was too
Yeah.
personal, and they were like, "Ah, do people really want to know this?" And they came so close to cutting it, and it was that person chiming in and saying, "No, you really need to keep that story. Like that helps make your book different than what else is on the market." And he listened and kept it in there.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. So yeah, so even though that was a challenging situation the first time it happened, it did teach me a major lesson about, here's how I can overcome this in the future. And here's how I can prevent this from happening again, hopefully.
Yeah, no, I really love that you shared that. It's not like it's not a topic that I thought of, but I
Yeah.
thought of like as even just as a question, but I think it's such a good topic for coaches to think of because in general, the people we're coaching are going to have other people giving them feedback. Because I've had
Yep.
similar situations where family members or
Hmm.
editors, like have come in that don't really know what they're talking about with publishing, but I have to know as the coach that the person I'm working with, my author, trusts them. So I want to appreciate and value that relationship too. And what I've done in the past is try to make it very much about kind of going back to what we talked about before, like what's in the best interest of the book and kind of
Right.
putting, or the project or whatever we're working on, putting it as like is your brother right in this case? Maybe not, but not like never saying like, okay, so and so, like your brother's completely wrong here. Their advice is terrible. No, let's
Yeah.
appreciate their advice. And is this the best thing that we can do for the book project? And yeah, that in the past has been very difficult for me, but it's helped. It's always helped to come back to what are the goals. And I think if you can come back to the
Yeah.
goals and kind of reorient around that, then you can have a better discussion, regardless of who's coming in and giving feedback. But yeah, that feedback thing, I would be really curious, like how that impacts other coaches. So there may be a question I'll have to ask some other people because yeah, I mean, I would imagine it would come in for health coaches or sales coaches or people that are helping people through other avenues. Yeah, because there's always going to be other people, Google competing advice on things like
Yeah.
how do you as the coach kind of measure up to that and yeah and deal with that really because there's always going to be feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw this thing on TikTok, right? There's that
Yeah,
whole
exactly.
I saw this thing on Instagram. I saw it and it's like, I bet you did see this thing. That doesn't make it true, right?
Yeah.
Or that doesn't make it the right solution for you just because it's worked for someone else. Yeah.
And I found that for me is one of the hardest things is when I find that the person I'm trying to help and trying to coach doesn't trust the process. I
Yeah.
was like, oh, is there something I messed up with that? Because yeah, they come in and say, some people come in and say, I watched a 60-second TikTok video. This is what I want to do. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 10 years. Like, we cannot do that. And here's why. And then they're like, oh, okay, I understand that. But yeah, it's when people can really trust the process and trust you as the person that they're hiring for help. Oh man, that is
Yeah.
just so nice. It's not always the case. And you do have to work at that. But
Yeah.
of course, I've had some people that just trust me and just trust the process. And that's, there's some freedom in that as a coach that you just, maybe that's the ideal, but oh man, it's good.
Yeah, I mean, and it's great if you can start with that trust from day one. But I think even once you have some proof of concept and some social proof in your corner, it's like you still have to build that up again with each new client because they're a different person and they have a different
Yeah.
message and they have a different set of circumstances that are going to be challenging for them. You have to always stick with those basics because you're always building again with every single client.
Yeah, and I think to a certain extent, everyone thinks they're the exception to the rule, right? Even if, okay, this health coach helped 100 other people lose weight. Like, well, maybe I'm the exception. Maybe I have something about me that they're not going to be able to help
Yeah.
me with potentially.
Yeah.
So I think there's always that part as well that you have to, and that's why it's good to be empathetic toward the person in that case.
Right. For sure.
Let's skip to okay. Someone graduates your coaching program. Okay, someone finishes their book. Thinking back to
Yeah.
the client you mentioned before, that's what I would want to talk about. The one that you helped with 2 books and then went on to write 4. What qualities did they possess that helped them work with you and to be able? Because
Yeah.
that's awesome to do 2 books with you and then go on to do 2 more after that. Man,
Yeah.
that would make me so proud as a book coach. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I really think it is she just had the consistency and the mindset to realize that, and it's something I didn't know at the time when we worked together. It's something I now teach, which is that publishing the book is not the finish line, it's the start line. And in some ways, I learned that lesson from her because I used to have that kind of mentality when working on a project of like, okay, publishing, it's the finish line. Yay, it's out there, it's done. And she did not do that. She really saw publishing the book as the start of something.
Hmm.
And that's why she's been able to go on and do the things she's done, where, she's a self-published author who started with literally zero platform. I think she had 3 followers when we launched her book. Like,
Yeah.
and one of them I think was me.
Yeah.
So, but since then, she's gone on to, besides having the additional books, which the 2 books I didn't help her with, I should clarify this, they are in the same niche as the 2 books I helped her with, but they were children's books.
Oh, okay.
And so, but where that was smart for her was that the 2 books I helped her with were more resources that like a parent would buy or a
Hmm.
professional would buy. But then the children's books, of course, were something that the people who were invested in those first 2 books would turn around and be like, here's how I make it practical for my kids now. And so she built on her message. And the first big thing was a college asked to add her first book to their curriculum for a course.
Amazing.
So she was like, cool, this means sales every semester now, you
Yeah.
know, which is nice for an author when you have like a predictable sales pattern happening with your book.
Yep.
Then she started getting invited to conferences to be able to be, part of a panel or even a keynote speaker because she started to be recognized for her book. And now a bunch of agencies in her niche have added her book onto their recommended reading list. That makes less work for her now because they're out there pitching her book, not just her. So and let's put this into perspective. She still has a full-time job. Like she's a social worker actually. And
Hmm.
so she's still
Cool.
out there doing good in the world and going to do her work at the hospital every single day, but her book career has become this really healthy side business, if you will, that kind of sustains itself now.
Yeah,
So
that's amazing.
yeah, which for her is kind of the dream because she always wanted the job she has. Like she's in her dream job and she wouldn't, even if she was probably making millions from her book, she'd probably still go do that job every day because she loves her work. But the fact that the book, because she was consistent with it and kept speaking about it and kept meeting people and networking and doing all of those things
Hmm.
that they tell you to do, she's turned it into its own business, really. So I'm just proud of her because she didn't get that from me. I learned from watching her
Hmm.
and now
Yeah.
get to pass
Yeah.
on those lessons.
Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah.
What was it about her that was just that she was able to do that, would you say?
I mean, I think it was just like the pure passion and
Yeah. Yeah.
recognizing that there was a need that was not getting met in the marketplace and still honestly is fairly unmet. So her
Hmm.
book is one of the very few that meets a need in her niche. And so she just identified that really well, but did it, we've heard niche down so many times, we're all sick of it.
Yes,
But
me too.
she figured out what most authors don't figure out, which is yes, niche down, but then also niche up.
Hmm.
So find that thing that and makes you different and makes you stand out and meets a need, but also figure out how you can scale that message up to where it's going to be of benefit to more people than just your target reader. And so she wrote the book for parents,
Hmm.
but the way that she's been able to niche up is all these agencies also want that book because they're working with the same people in that niche. And so that's the power of niching up after you've niched down is recognizing that's really how people are able to scale their
Hmm.
message. And you look at the most successful business books, they, every single one of them has a niche. All these authors have a niche, but they figured out how to make their message applicable to a wider audience. So they find that fine balance of not writing a book for
Yeah.
everyone,
Yeah.
but at the same time, managing to write a book for most people.
Yeah.
So
That
it's tough to do.
it's very tough to do. And that's what I tell all my clients. Like, this is the goal, what we're going to try to do. We're going to have a target audience
Yeah.
and we're going to make that book really work for them.
Yeah.
And we want your book to also be potentially applicable for other people as well. Like, basically, if other people coming in and reading it can benefit from it, that's great. And that's why we're going to make sure the concepts are very clear. We're going to talk about these things, but we also want it to
Yeah.
be the number one goal. I always say is, like, we want it to be super successful for the right people, for the people you want it to be, because then you know who to give it to and who to sell it to.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell people to do the coffee shop test. It's a exercise that I do with a lot of my clients where I
Hmm.
say, imagine that you go into a coffee shop to meet with someone. Maybe it's someone who's reached out to you who wants your mentorship or has a question because they're in the same space as you. And so you already know this person. You know what their needs are, like what they're facing,
Hmm.
so you're meeting up with them to give them that specific advice because you can relate directly to their challenges. But because you're in a coffee shop, you're very aware that there's people sitting around you. And so you're probably not going to say things exactly the same way. as if it was just a phone call where, there's no one else listening in. You're probably going to share things in a way where that random eavesdropper, you're okay with them hearing
Hmm.
that part of your message. And so that's the exercise I have a lot of my
I
authors
like
do
that.
to figure out like how they can speak to their target reader while still thinking wider than just that person.
No, I like that a lot. I'll have to think about that. That's a good one. I
Yeah.
think that's a good way of getting people to think about that for sure.
Yeah. 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 More
Excuse
often
me.
than not, it works out pretty well.
Yeah. So this is kind of a question on the side, but I know that like coaches listening to this are always interested in this because we all want to like not maybe we don't all want to grow and scale to like a major business, but we want to have success with our coaching business. So, is there
Yeah.
anything specific that you would want to share that you've done to help grow your book coaching business specifically?
I mean, this is gonna sound super cliche, but sometimes cliches, the reason they become cliches is because it's
Exactly,
true,
because they work. Yeah.
because they work. But it really has been about meeting people and
Hmm.
networking. Because I used to be very anti-networking, which is,
Same.
yeah, same as you. Which is kind of funny because I'm naturally an extrovert. For most of my life, I've been extrovert, but as I've gotten older, I've become more introverted. And so
Hmm.
just the idea of like adding new people to my circle is just like, but why? Like so many
Yeah.
people have left my circle and I'm kind of glad that they
Yeah.
have.
Yeah.
I know that's terrible to say, but it's the truth.
No, it's the truth.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so it really was about 2 years ago. I realized I am holding myself back because I don't know enough people in this space. And
Yeah.
I have been too dependent on, a limited amount of baskets. And for me, that's what networking is. It's about adding baskets. And you never want to have all your eggs in just one or two. You want
Yeah.
to have 7, 8, 9 baskets. And so for me, it really has been meeting people and engaging with people and seeing how you can help them before seeing how they can help you. Like putting that other person first because, the world has a way of kind of paying you back for that. I know we're both very engaged on LinkedIn. And, the honest truth is that, people were like, oh, post on LinkedIn, and leads just magically come to you. Doesn't really work that way, at least not in
No.
our
Yeah.
space, I don't think.
No,
Maybe
it
that works
doesn't.
for some other people.
Yeah.
But what I found is investing my time there has been good for my business because of the people that I've met that have then turned into opportunities. Like I recently got a ghostwriting agent, and I didn't even know that agents for ghostwriting existed until
Yeah.
I started engaging with people online and specifically LinkedIn and finding out that this is a real thing. And then I realized, oh, this is something I should look for. And I just started naturally connecting with people. And I sent out a few queries looking for an agent ghostwriter, but it was actually a LinkedIn connection that led me to my agent rather than a query. And so I'm like, yeah, you know what? Doing those things, just connecting with people, and then other opportunities too. Like there have been other people who have come to me who have said like, oh, I noticed you know this person. How do you know them? And again, those kind of conversations
Hmm.
evolve and they turn into other conversations. And so that's again, cliche advice, network, and people have heard it 1,000 times. Well, now you've heard it 1,001 times because that really has been what has changed my business recently and what will continue to change it.
Yeah, so I 100% agree, and I'll add too, like for listeners, one something I found, I'm curious your take on this too, but I think I used to be scared of networking and like I don't want to just
Mm,
go and meet people and just have random conversations. But a big thing for me this year and recently has been bravely starting conversations. That's kind of what I've said
yeah,
I've had in my goals because it doesn't need to be how everyone else does it. Like I don't need to follow some cold direct message, cold calling strategy that other people have said this works for me. I can do it
right.
my way and I can talk to people my way. For me, it's like giving value, popping into people's DMs with no pressure, just kind of I'm giving away a copy of my book right now. That's kind of it's been my direct
Yeah,
message strategy. But it's
yeah,
just what I do what feels right for me. And I think that's an important part of networking and growing a coaching or growing any business in general. So you want to make it needs to work for you.
Yeah.
Because even if I would get on and send 1,000 direct messages, some people would say, Jordan, you're definitely going to find a client with that. Okay. I don't even disagree with that, but is it going to be a good fit? Am I going to feel good about it? Am I going to
Yeah.
enjoy the time that I'm doing that, bothering people? No, I don't want to put that out in the world. I can do it my way. And I think that's important. But I'm curious what you think about that. Have you thought about it in that way or?
Yeah, no, I think my experience has been very similar. And so for me, it really has been more about how can I just find cool people who I like what they
Yeah.
have to say and I'm learning from them and hopefully we can learn from each other. And again, eventually that will turn into something
Hmm.
because it's not a short game. Go back to running. It's a
Yeah.
marathon, right? It's not a
Yeah.
sprint. And so I won't say that it's been the most intentional process, but what I've discovered is a lot of the people that I resonate with the most, they actually they are not my ideal client profile, but they might be working with my ICP.
Yeah.
So, because a lot of the people who I really want to hire me, especially for things like ghostwriting, they are really not on LinkedIn. And there's usually several layers of
Hmm.
gatekeeping between me and them. Like I'm not going to be able to send a cold DM to those people because they're just not reachable. But if I'm connected with the people who are then connected with them, that changes something. So
Hmm.
I love following other professional coaches on LinkedIn in particular, because guess what? They're working with CEOs every day. They're working with founders every day. They're working with entrepreneurs every day. And when those people start saying, you know what, I think I need to scale my business with a book, I want them thinking of me because I know that's not something they're going to be able to help their client with. And so if I can then be an asset to them where they're like, oh, you know what? I can't help my client with that, but I know someone who can, who
Hmm.
I already trust and who has been valuable to me, boom, that opens up opportunity. And then it becomes a very symbiotic relationship.
Yeah, because you're not there to sell them, you're there to solve a
No.
problem. And that's where it becomes easy. It's like, oh, I know this person, they do this, have a conversation. It makes it easier for the person that you end up talking to, the CEO, whoever's deciding to write a book. Say, I
Yeah.
don't want to go in and interview 10 people. The person, a person I trust already referred you, like it's done, it's easy. It's
Yeah.
amazing to me the conversations and how they start off those conversations on a discovery call start off from a point of, yeah, unless you give me any like basically unless you throw a red flag in there on the screen, like I'm already hiring you. And it's
Right.
like, let's just talk about the process and what it looks like.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
makes all the work you do feel really worth it because you don't feel like you even have to sell when you get to that point. And yeah, of course I think some people say, well, that's an ideal, Jordan, but it's an ideal, but it happens,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I mean, so it's one of the things I'm working towards right now is I've been developing a book coaching program, like a group book coaching program. And
cool.
I'm recognizing as I'm, building that out that, well, this actually makes a lot of sense for the LinkedIn world because not everyone is going to be able to drop five figures on a developmental editor or a ghostwriter. And not everyone wants to do that right away when they're still early on in the process. But, if they're already open to coaching and they're receiving that in other areas, they're probably going to be open to a limited engagement book coaching program that helps them move the needle.
Yeah. Yeah. And at least it's like a way for them to dip their toes in.
Yeah, yeah. And again, it's like just because they work with me through that doesn't mean I'm the best fit for them, to work long term on something with their book. You might be the best fit for them. And again, that's another reason you need to know other professionals in your space and not see them as competition, is because there's going to be times you're like, man, this person's cool, but we're just not quite the right fit for a long term project. But I know two or three other people who they probably would click with. I'm not going to pretend I'm the right person for everyone. I'm not.
Yeah, and that there's so much I see I love that too because there's so much benefit to that. Just knowing other people
Mhm.
that do what we do that we can
Yeah.
refer to each other. And then I've never seen that as competition. It's like that the abundance mindset there is so much, it's so much better because it just feels so much better too. You're right. And especially what you said, it's like, okay, I'm not
Yeah.
going to be the right fit for everyone. I'm going to turn some projects down. Of course, I've
Yeah.
turned some projects down and I would not send them your way because of how I turned them down. And because of the red flags I saw, I'm like, I am not going to put that on Jonathan. So we're not going to send that to another ghostwriter. But yeah, if it was just a case of not right fit or don't have the availability, then of course. But yeah, that's the advantage again of growing that network. And I speak from only having done that the last couple of years too. Before that, I was very isolated, not talking to other people, no idea what to charge, no idea of a lot of things. And yeah, I would say the last
Yeah.
couple of years I've learned so much because I got on LinkedIn, because I started to be connected with people. So
Yeah. I mean, and I'll use you as an example, actually. If someone came to me with a book project, but they were like, you know what, Jonathan, you're pretty cool, but I really think because of what my book focus is, I really think I need someone with some expat experience.
yeah,
Then I'd be like, well, yeah, that's not me. Like
yeah.
if that's an important value for you, that the person working on this book has that experience to make sure that they maybe can help you with some things that you don't think of by yourself, I'd be like, you know what? Jordan's a great guy for you then because he is an expat. Like he has that experience and he can probably help supplement a lot of your ideas in a way that I just wouldn't be able to because I don't have that same life experience. That's the type of example where I would send someone your way when they have that really important core value that they need to make sure makes it into the book.
And like it's cool because it's for the client. So if I find someone
Right.
too that's it's like has similar that wants to write a book with the interests you have. Man, I know a lot about you already.
Yeah.
I know you're into the Olympics. I
Yeah.
know you're a big movie buff. And if
Yeah.
I had someone come in that was like that, then it'd be like, actually, I have in mind a really good fit for you. But I think and again, you're not gonna find that, or people aren't gonna refer you in that way if you're not,
Yeah.
if you're isolated. Like that's never gonna happen. That's
Right.
a bucket, like you shared before, giving the bucket analogy. That's a bucket
Yeah.
you're just not. It doesn't even exist if you're not
Yeah.
connecting with other people. So. All right. So, one of the last questions I like to ask to make sure that you get to say what you want to say. What's a
Sure.
soapbox in this industry or in general that you like to stand on? And then now's your time to stand on
Oh man, I will keep this as short as possible because I
it.
talk about it enough as it is.
Yeah.
But you will never convince me otherwise on this one issue, which is that books are for readers and not for authors. Period. And I'll even make that argument with Memoir because I've had people push back on me before with that and be like, well, what
Hmm.
about Memoir? That isn't that book for the author because they're sharing their story. I'm like, no, because ultimately the person buying that book, the reason they're interested in your story and want to learn from your story is because they see something of themselves in there. They have some kind of connection or resonance with you enough that they realize I can learn from this person for my own situation. And so I will die on that hill. I will. That and it is one of the biggest mistakes I see made in manuscripts that get sent my way, especially for editing projects where I'm not
Yeah.
involved in any of the writing. I see it time and time again where authors are writing the book as if the book is for them and about them, and it's not. Your book is about your reader. It's about their goals. It's about their why, not your why. And if you are too focused on your why that you can't see where your reader wants to go, your book will never be a success. I'm willing to say that. Like it
Yeah.
just won't
Yeah.
be successful. And if you look at the most successful business books, even the ones from really big names, like I've got Bob Iger's book back here on my shelf, it's like, he's a huge CEO, runs one of the biggest companies, one of the most recognizable companies in the world. So, of course, people are going to buy his book. But ultimately, the lessons that he teaches in there, the reason people engage with it is because they can learn from those lessons no matter what size organization they run.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the book work. It's about the reader, it's not about the author. I will stand by that all day long.
Yeah, I'll be on that hill with you. I'll fight people off it
Yeah.
as they try to take us off it because yeah, reader centric. The reader is the one that matters. If you can share your own story in a way that's cathartic for you, and get
Yeah.
it out of your head, and put it in the first draft, great. But you have to be willing to kill that story in the final edits if it doesn't serve the reader.
Yeah.
If it's not, again, the best idea wins. If it's not serving the book, then you have to be willing to take it out and
Yeah.
tell it somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah, there's other avenues where you can do that. But
Yep.
yeah, I think, and for a lot of authors, it's actually a freeing thought when they realize it. Like I have one client right now who his book is very, very memoir-esque.
Hmm.
There's definitely a heavy personal development side to it that we're leaning into. But that was one of the biggest struggles when he came to me with his manuscript because he was like three-quarters of the way done. And he was like, Jonathan, I just don't know which stories to cut out and which ones to leave in.
Yep.
Because for me, this was my life. And so I view it very chronologically of this led to this, but I feel like there's maybe too much in here. And he was right. There was. He just couldn't pinpoint what needed to be cut. And as we've been going through that process, it's like, does this story here teach any kind of lesson that your reader can learn from? And he's like, yeah, no, it doesn't. And it's
Yeah.
made it so much easier for him to cut those parts once he realized, oh, if it doesn't teach a lesson, if it doesn't help my reader, then I can say goodbye to it. It doesn't invalidate that it was part of my personal experience, but I'm keeping the reader focused the entire time.
Yep. Awesome. Perfect. Where can people find you?
I mean, kind of already covered that, right? Pretty easy to find on LinkedIn.
Hmm.
That's it's about the I do engage in other places for social media, but I'm
Okay.
doing true engagement on those platforms less than not as much posting. So in terms of learning from me, come to LinkedIn and you can learn from me all day long. So
Cool.
yeah, you'll find me there. And then I just recently launched a new website as part of my process of building up that group book coaching program. And
Okay.
so
Cool.
that website is forwardwriting.com. So FORWORD writing.com. But that's kind of, I'm making that kind of like the hub for, hey, if you're interested in book coaching, then come there. So I'm still tweaking that website, but it is up and running. And so it's a good way to at least get more information about that program.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we'll put the links to that in the show notes summary,
Yeah.
wherever that ends up. But yeah, anything else you want to share with us today, man? I appreciate your time, and it's been a great conversation. Like you said at the beginning, I think before we even started the recording, you and I could talk about this stuff all day because we do
Yeah,
talk about this stuff all day.
I do.
But yeah,
Yeah.
is there anything else that you want to share?
No, just thanks for
Okay.
doing this. I think it's always great to get this information out there because we need to be better than Google and we need to be better than Chat GPT. And that only happens in relationship and getting to know someone as an individual and their needs. That's really where the magic happens. And so, yeah, I think that's the next step people need to really take is stop relying so much on the search engines and the scraped knowledge. Not that there's not a little bit of value there, but at the end of the day, your goals and your voice are unique, and you deserve having someone help you with that process who will treat you as a human being and not as another metric in SEO.
Yep. Beautifully said. I say we end it there. That was
Yeah.
perfect. I love that. That was a fantastic summary. All right, thanks, man. Appreciate your time. Thanks for being on.
Yeah, you bet.
Are you still here listening to this podcast? You're awesome. I got two CTAs for you. Number one, subscribe to this podcast for more. And number two, have you ever thought about writing a book? Contact Jordan. He can help you out. Jordan at jamring.com.